Welcome to the College Football Bros. I'm Michael Newman.
I'm Ryan Newman.
And I'm Trey Newman.
All right, on today's episode, we are ranking every hire of the 2023 Coaching Carousel. So all three of us made our own unique lists, 1 through 24, and we just averaged them together to come up with this official list that cannot be debated. But go ahead and try in the comments below if you're watching on YouTube. Ryan, who was the worst hire of this offseason?
Yeah, the combination of ours was Tim Beck at 24th here. So the new hire at Coastal Carolina, coming from the NC State as the offensive coordinator there. You guys were lower on him than me. I actually put him at 20th. Like, I understand that he hasn't done anything spectacular in his career, but you got to look back at the overall length. And he's actually done a decent job at numerous different places. Ohio State with J.T. Barrett, Texas, Sam Ehlinger, NC State, Devin Leary, going back all the way to Nebraska. He had some good offenses with Taylor Martinez and Tommy Armstrong, actually. So is it a super sexy hire? No, but I kind of honestly compare this one to like Jay Norvell when he was hired by Nevada. He had been a longtime assistant, certainly kind of paid his dues, had some pretty good success, but nothing insane. Ended up doing a great job in Reno. So up in the air here for sure, but I think Beck couldn't do a good job there. I think it's open.
Wow, that was the most positive review of our 24th. Why is he 24th? Why'd you have him 20th? You're so high on him.
I'm trying to be rosy today, man.
Yeah, I guess
coaching hires are it could be good. Like even the dead last one could be really good.
Yeah, I would say to like justify putting him last, though, I guess just because the NC State offenses, I would say, were kind of underwhelming lately. So that's
last year,
yeah,
sure.
And never been a head guy, and now he's got to take over but it's a good spot. Maybe it could work.
Yep. Number 23 on our list is Lance Taylor at Western Michigan. I will say it's hard for a MAC school to get super desirable coaches because the salaries that they're paying obviously are not as good as like the top end coordinators at Power 5 schools. We've seen, of course, who was it? Kent State's head coach Sean Lewis left to take a Colorado offensive coordinator job. So that gives you an idea of how desirable these jobs can be. But, Lance Taylor has had success as a running backs coach at Stanford and Notre Dame. But his only year as an offensive coordinator this past season at Louisville did not go well at all. So that's why he's so low on the list.
Moving on to number 22, Trent Dilfer at UAB. It's pretty risky hire by UAB, just because they've had a decent run of success here in recent years. Now transitioning to the AAC, hiring someone that has only been a head coach at a prep school the last few years in Tennessee. I will say, though, the thing going for him is he's a name brand. People have heard of him, given his time on ESPN. He won a Super Bowl as a quarterback. He's also worked the Elite 11 camps. So, he's demonstrated at least the ability to connect with young kids, but now kind of has to prove he can do it and run his own program.
Yeah, that's a wild card. Who the heck knows? But if you're a UAB, I always think it's worth a shot. Why not? Go for it. Dilfer could be good. All right, moving on. Number 21, Biff Poggi. He's the new head man at Charlotte, coming from Michigan as the associate head coach. I was a little lower at him, 23rd. Just 2 years of college experience, and he wasn't even in charge of a certain side of the ball. So it's not like he's kind of some stud offensive or defensive coordinator. Getting up there in age already, 63 years old. Got to factor that in. He did have a lot of success as a high school coach, but that was in Maryland. This is North Carolina. I don't know. I just have not a whole lot to go on that gives me a ton of confidence that he's going to do well. I mean, he could learn from Jim Harbaugh for a couple years, which is never a bad thing, but I don't know.
I mean, he's a hedge fund millionaire, so maybe he can.
That's true. That helps.
Help raise some money for the program, and he got a lot of credit for changing the culture these last 2 years at Michigan. Right, these last 2 years have been incredible, and a lot of people have credited him kind of helping to, improve the culture there. So,
all right, give him that.
Could work out. Number 20 is Kenny Burns at Kent State. Has done a very good job as a running backs coach under PJ Fleck at Minnesota. and even dating back to Western Michigan. He was there for a year, so he's coached in the MAC before as a position coach, and Minnesota valued him highly enough to make him. He's been their assistant head coach, so well thought of, but never been a coordinator, and obviously never been a head coach. So you just never know what to expect.
Number 19, Brian Newberry. Excuse me, Brian Newberry for Navy. I personally had Newberry a little bit lower than this. Not really his fault. Don't even really know him. I know that. I mean, I know he's led some good defenses at Navy. They're usually in kind of the upper half of the conference. He did inherit a really poor defense there and turned it around. However, he's never been a head coach, and it was just such an odd firing of Niumatalolo that, because the firing wasn't obviously met with much, positive fanfare. So they felt they needed to move on. And I thought they would try and hit a home run, I guess, if you can, at a service academy. The thing I'm looking at, though, is like, wasn't Newberry part of the culture that wasn't good enough for them, in firing, Coach Ken to begin with? So I will say that I've heard that players really respect him, really like Newberry. So that obviously must have carried a lot of weight here. So, we'll see how it pans out, but I don't know, cautiously optimistic. Hopefully he can kind of keep the Navy thing, the Navy ship, no pun intended, back up and rise again.
Yeah, it was an interesting hire. We'll see, but I understand your trepidation there. Okay, let's move on to Troy Taylor at number 18 here, the new man at Stanford. He's got some good things on his resume. Most recently, he's been the head coach at Sacramento State, which, historically hasn't been an easy place to win games. They were 2-8 the year before his arrival. But then his very first year gets him to 9 wins. Same thing in his second season. And then this past year, they won 12. So a very good job there up in Sacramento. And then before that, he did a good job as an offensive coordinator at Utah. Pretty good. And then Eastern Washington, he was a little hamstrung. But this is the way he wants offenses to be, up at Sac State.
Yes.
So definitely the most, true to who he is. But, Stanford obviously needs help with their offense, getting that going. So I think Troy Taylor does kind of make some sense, and he's familiar with the area. So, it should be exciting at the very least.
Yeah, I kind of like the hire. Like everywhere except for Utah, like you said, where maybe he was hamstrung, wasn't quite running the style that he seems to run elsewhere. Everywhere else, he's been super successful. So
it's not like it was bad at Utah.
No, it wasn't bad. You're right. It wasn't bad.
And he took Asher O'Hara this year, and Asher O'Hara had a big year, who had kind of struggled.
Was that his quarterback at Sac State?
Yeah.
Okay. There you go. Okay, number 17 is Brent Key from Georgia Tech. The positive is that he's an alum, did a good job as the interim after taking over for Jeff Collins, and he's coached under Nick Saban, so there's that experience. I get why they kept him, those are the reasons why, but also he was not a guy that really any other Power 5 school would have been looking to hire as their head coach. And it seems like they kept him around, at least in part because Georgia Tech is having financial difficulties. They maybe couldn't have afforded to go out and get a proven head coach. Willie Fritz was a rumor for a while. Not sure what broke down there, but it seems like they kind of just like, all right, he's here. He did well as an interim. He probably comes cheaper than someone else. Let's keep him, give it a shot.
Yeah.
Yep. I hear you there. Number 16, we have Kevin Wilson of Tulsa. Now, Tulsa's had a tough run recently, but with them transitioning to the AAC, with the transition of the AAC, kind of bringing in some new schools and dropping some of the top players, maybe he can help kind of revitalize the program enough to get them back competitive. I mean, he obviously knows offense. Tulsa has historically been synonymous with good offenses. He didn't have success as the head guy at Indiana, but to his credit, I guess you kind of have to give him a pass just because of how
last 2 years
he
made a bowl game.
It wasn't.
And then he got fired for concerns
there was
over
some alleged
mistreatment of
misconduct,
players.
but either way,
a little bit of concern.
Obviously that's not good. But now he's been an assistant for the last 5 or 6 years at Ohio State, so maybe you can take some of the kind of Ryan Day and Buckeye offensive principles and apply them at Tulsa. And he does have some ties to the area, given his time at Oklahoma before. I can see why they made the hire. It's just not, the splashiest.
Yeah, I hear you. All right, let's move on. Number 15, we got Zach Arnett, the head coach now at Mississippi State. He was previously their defensive coordinator. Of course, he's taken over after the tragic passing of Mike Leach. But Zach Arnett he did a great job there as defensive coordinator the past few years, really elevated them to a very, very solid group. So I think it does make sense to keep him on as the head guy. Not only did he leave good defenses down to Starkville, but over at San Diego State, he did a good job for a couple of years. He's a young, energetic guy that seems to get the most out of his players, and the players seem to respect him. It just certainly made the most sense to keep him on. So I like the hire here. I think it'll work.
Yeah, it's hard to rank that one because like you said, it just felt like the right move, So
I know, and I feel bad for Mississippi State because it was almost like the timing they couldn't. I don't know. It's hard to go get someone outside the program. I don't know. That's a tough position for everyone, of course.
Yeah. Right, number 14, we have Eric Morris at North Texas. Ryan, you were the big hater on this one.
I was really turned off by the Wazoo lack of explosion this year.
Yeah, so Eric Morris was Washington State's offensive coordinator this past season. Of course, he came from Incarnate Word, where he was the head coach there in Texas, and did a great job. Took that program to heights they'd never been. Made 2 playoffs there, their first 2 playoff appearances ever, and so did a great job. And then the 1 year at Wazoo, the offense was fine, but it wasn't great. So if you're just basing it off that, I can see why you're not excited. But I'm looking more at his tenure at Incarnate Word in Texas, and now being back in the state of Texas. I like it. He also he was Patrick Mahomes' offensive coordinator. Now it was under Cliff Kingsbury, so of course Cliff had more of a hand in the offense. But still, I think it's a hire that makes sense.
Hey, GJ Kinney came in. Go ahead, Trey.
Well, hey, I'm going to get to him next. But North Texas also isn't that bad of a program. Like what he's inheriting. Like they weren't horrendous.
No, they could have kept Luttrell.
Yeah, and so Ryan,
I know what you're going to say about GJ Kinney. We'll get to it in a sec here. Let's let Trey.
Okay. So you got GJ Kinney at number 13. Texas State hired him. I like the hire, even though he has little head coaching experience. What Ryan was trying to allude to is he took over Incarnate Word from Morris. They went 12-2, went to the FCS semis. They averaged over 50 points a game. But he took over Morris, who left the program, in pretty good shape. I will say Kinney kind of took it maybe one step further with a different quarterback.
Morris took some of his dudes. He was trying to, hurt Incarnate
Morris
Word,
left a pretty great roster, Ryan, if they're still good after he took away the quarterback and receiver.
GJ Kinney maybe is better.
But no, I do like Kinney. He's been all over the place, both playing and coaching, almost somewhere different every year. He was with Texas and then Tulsa, bounced around the NFL and AFL and Canadian Football League. Like he was all over. And then and he's been in some form of coaching a lot recently. SMU, Arkansas, back to the Eagles, Hawaii, Central Florida. But the thing I like is he's from Texas, got a strong offensive background. I just think it could be a good fit for Texas State to get rolling.
Why not? Yeah, all right, moving on. Number 12, we got Alex Golesh, the new head coach at South Florida. He was Tennessee's offensive coordinator past couple seasons. This past year's. And then before that, he was actually worked under Matt Campbell at Iowa State. And so he's done a good job. And he was the tight ends coach there at Iowa State when he helped develop Chase Allen and Charlie Kohler. Those two guys actually swept the kind of all Big 12 awards for that conference a few years back. So pretty impressive what he did there. And, obviously he wasn't the main dude running that offense at Tennessee the past couple of years, but certainly had a good influence on him. Learned a lot from Josh Heupel, who knows offense. I just think he's going to be able to take that and kind of use it to himself at USF. So I think he'll have some fun offenses. Now, can he put together a little defense? Remains to be seen, but there's going to be I think there'll be some positive moments for him at South Florida.
Yeah. I definitely see it as a positive being under Heupel for the last few years. He was with him at UCF, I believe, too, before he got to Tennessee.
Yeah, he was.
So,
yeah.
Yeah.
Tight end coach there. Yeah.
Okay. Number 11 on our list is Barry Odom at UNLV. So he's coming off of, I would say, overall a successful tenure as the defensive coordinator at Arkansas, even though this past year didn't go so well. But man, UNLV has just had a rough past couple decades. They've hired different types of coaches. Like they've hired coaches from the FCS level, from the high school level, Power 5 assistants. They've gone all over the place. Nothing has stuck. So I like just going and getting a proven head coach. Of course, Odom coached at Missouri and in the SEC and did a fine job. Like he ended up getting fired, but it was one of those firings where you were like, you didn't have to fire him. He was doing okay. Yeah. So I think for a Mountain West school to get Barry Odom is pretty good. I probably wouldn't have fired Arroyo, but I don't think you downgraded here.
No, program's in good standing. They get to play in the new stadium, putting money into the facilities. All right, Kenny Dillingham, number 10, Arizona State. It's well documented that he's young, 32 years old, first-time head coach. But he's extremely passionate about the Sun Devils, given that he's an Arizona native, ASU grad, and he's been on a fast rise to this spot. He was with some good offenses at Memphis, Auburn, Florida State, the head offensive coordinator at Oregon last year. He got Bo Nix to play at a near Heisman level for most of the year. Now with ASU, he might have to navigate some NCAA issues, and he hasn't obviously ever led a program before. So there's certainly some risk, but the fit works. There's some upside. If I'm an ASU fan, I think I like the hire. They went with the older guy, Herm, last time, didn't pay dividends in the end. Shake it up, go with a young one, especially with the fan base that can, have a connection with him, given that he's an alum.
Yeah, it's a pretty big wild card here. I'm not super convinced on him. All right, anyways, moving on. Number 9, we got Ryan Walters, a new head coach at Purdue. He was coming off the defensive coordinator position for Illinois. And man, Illinois was second in the nation in yards per play given up this year, which just incredible for Illinois. And you go back to 2020, the year before Walters got there, Illinois was tied for 100th in yards per play given up. So just in 2 short years, he took them from 100th to 2nd. I mean, that's amazing. So I don't see any reason why he won't have a very good defense at Purdue. I think his defense will be able to keep him in games, kind of at a minimum. So if his offensive coordinator, Graham Harrell, can just get a decent offense going, Purdue should continue success that they had kind of under Jeff Brohm. So I like the Ryan Walters hire. He's done about as good as a job as you could do, at his position so far.
Yeah, did a great job at Missouri as their defensive coordinator as well. Mm-hmm. Number 8 is probably a polarizing one. People might have him a lot lower. Scott Satterfield at Cincinnati. His tenure at Louisville didn't go as well, certainly not as well as it seemed like it would after year 1, where he had such a huge improvement in wins from what he inherited. I believe they went 8-5, which was well over expectation. But it just, they kind of regressed a little bit, but it wasn't terrible, right? Like, I think the big thing that went wrong was that he flirted with the South Carolina job. Louisville fans really didn't like that. It just kind of instantly put a kind of a damper on the program, and so just kind of treading water wasn't good enough with that. And this year, though, like, they were actually, if you look at the metrics, they were a top 30, top 40 team. So again, it's not like things went so poorly there that you just kind of write him off as a bad coach. You still have what he did at App State, bringing them to FBS, just unbelievable job at App State. So I think there's a high floor for him, even if it's not maybe the most exciting hire.
Yep. Number 7 is Tom Herman. And I don't know. I really like this hire for Florida Atlantic. If FAU has become a spot for coaches to try and regenerate their careers. Lane Kiffin went there, won 11 games a couple times. Willie Taggart tried to, find his groove again. Didn't pan out as well for him. But Herman himself, he did great at Houston, got them to a New Year's Six bowl. He actually did fine at Texas, but just couldn't really get him over the hump. I wouldn't be surprised if he has some success and makes FAU competitive again. You got a talent rich area. Maybe he can tap into some Boca Raton NIL money. They're moving into the AAC now, so it's a kind of a good time for them to rise, and maybe he can take advantage.
Yeah, I'm with you. I like the hire.
We could have talked ourselves into him at Nebraska if they had hired him. So
yes,
for FAU to get him, yeah, I agree.
Yeah,
that's great.
Definitely. Yep. All right, moving on to number 6, we have Jamie Chadwell going from Coastal Carolina to Liberty. He's 31-6 the last 3 years at Coastal, so just a great job by him there. Got to love the offense he runs. It's very fun to watch. And it was really easy the past few years to cheer for Coastal, just kind of coming out of nowhere. No real history to kind of hate them for, so they were easy to cheer for. And I think he's going to do a fine job taking over for Hugh Freeze. Maybe just a couple of concerns for me is just, can he consistently bring in the talent that he's going to need, like in recruiting? And, what would his tenure have looked like at Coastal if he didn't find like an incredibly rare diamond in the rough, Grayson McCall? Like, how does Coastal for him go without that one guy? And because he was just, it's not often a Sunbelt school gets a true kind of game changer at quarterback and then gets to keep him for 3 seasons on top of that. So, I'm sure he's a good QB developer, I'm sure, but that one was a pretty special one that I don't know if he's going to be able to replicate. So, because without McCall, they're just destroyed this past season. A few games, they were horrible without him. So I know it's a little different scenarios, but it was a little concerning for me.
Okay. All right. Number 5 on the list is who he's replacing at Liberty. It's Hugh Freeze, who is now at Auburn. And, I ranked this not on whether or not I would have hired him, but just how I think he'll do. And he's a really good coach. His teams always succeed. He always seems to get good quarterback play. Arkansas State, Ole Miss, Liberty. He's crushed it at every stop on the field. So I would expect him to do well at Auburn. He knows what it takes. He knows he's going to put an emphasis on recruiting. He's already done a good job in the transfer portal. Like, I just think he wins.
Yeah, no, I like him there. Indeed. Number 4, Jeff Braum at Louisville. The native son is coming home. He's from there, of course, was a great player there. He's clearly someone who the Louisville fans will rally around compared to Satterfield, who you were mentioning before, Michael. He brings some strong and fun offenses. He was finally able to break through and win the Big Ten West at Purdue this past year. You do kind of get the sense he obviously maybe hit a ceiling there, it kind of seemed, but he has a much better path to winning in the ACC with Louisville. The timing just feels right for both Braum and the Cardinal, and I think the fresh start might help him. The only thing I will say is I want to see if he can kind of up the recruiting a little bit, since you've got Clemson, Miami now, Florida State, and North Carolina all recruiting at a higher level than them. But overall, I think it's a perfect marriage, and I'm looking forward to seeing hopefully some success at Louisville.
Yeah, I'd be surprised if they weren't, at least pretty good with him. He's a good coach.
Oh yeah.
All right, let's move on to number 3. We have Matt Rhule, hired at Nebraska. Of course, he's coming from the NFL, from his not so successful stint as the Carolina Panthers head coach, which, as a Nebraska fan, I think we can forgive. That was in the NFL. College is much different. So let's take a look at his college tenures here. He did not take over great situations at Temple or Baylor. And at each place, his first year was rough there. Not going to lie, it was really bad. Second year at both places, it was solid. Get to about 500. Then the third year is when it really has taken off at Temple and Baylor. They were awesome seasons for them. And so if I'm Nebraska, I'm signing up for that in a heartbeat. I can survive one more bad year. It's been 6 in a row now, right? 7, whatever. I'll do with one if I can get decent and then great after the next years. So I'm on board with this hire. If I'm Nebraska, I think it's about as good as they could have hoped for. He's a proven program builder, and now at Nebraska, he's got about as much support as he's ever going to have. The support staff's huge, and he's doing a solid job on the recruiting front already. And I like how he puts an emphasis on line play too. That's been in the Achilles heel for Nebraska for far too long. You got to be good on the line. So, the opportunity's there. Seems like a good hire.
Okay, number 2 on the list is definitely the most talked about hire, Deion Sanders at Colorado. And there are coaches on this list. If you're watching on YouTube, there's coaches behind Deion Sanders that I would rank ahead if we're just ranking who I think the best coaches are right now. But we're not just ranking the coaches; we're ranking the hires. So you're taking into account who's doing the hiring. And Colorado, well, they were the worst Power 5 program by far this year.
Yeah.
They've had just a horrible run almost every year for the past 2 decades. So it's just, there's no good vibes around the program. They've had players transferring out the last couple seasons. So to get a guy who has immediately just done a 180 with that, Colorado fans could not be more excited about the program. They're actually recruiting well. They're getting transfers in. They're going to be talked about. People are going to want to invest. Like, it's the best possible hire they could have made, like a realistic hire. If you hired Nick Saban, of course that's better, but that wasn't going to happen. But getting Deion, even though, yes, we don't know, he's unproven at the FBS level. I get it. It's not saying it's a guarantee of success.
Yeah, it's boom or bust, but
like, I honestly, bust for them is like, they were so terrible. Like, I feel like they're almost guaranteed to be better than they've been.
Yeah, they can't be worse, man.
He's raising their floor, that's for sure.
He gives them the opportunity for boom, which I don't think bringing in like Brent Brennan or someone like that would have.
Yep.
No, that's very true. Very exciting. It'll be fun to watch
Brent
it play
Brennan.
out.
You're doing a fine job at San Jose State.
Yeah.
He's my classic. He's my go-to. Just like, I don't know why. Just kind of milquetoast hire.
Yeah. Number 1, we had Luke Fickell at Wisconsin. Home run hire for the Badgers. It seems like a perfect fit. The Badgers fans can obviously associate with his physical style, good defenses. And, for each of the last few years, we've kind of wondered where Fickell might end up, if anywhere, if he was going to leave Cincinnati. Was he just holding out for his alma mater, Ohio State? But at Cincinnati, we know the success he had, multiple conference titles, went to the playoff. He proved his worth in recruiting against Cincinnati. Now needs to elevate that a little bit at Wisconsin. And, the Badgers, they finally went outside the program. He's bringing in a new identity. The new offensive coordinator, Phil Longo, will modernize the offense. So there's a lot of things to like about Fickell. He's proven that he can develop the talent that he gets. And it's not like the Badgers are totally, starting from the bottom here. They've been a strong program for, about 20 years, even with the slight downturn the last couple seasons. So number 1 hire for us.
Yeah, we all agreed. We all had him number 1, so it was unanimous there. Okay, if you're watching on YouTube, here's the full list. Where do you guys think, if you're looking at making tiers here, and you had to kind of have one big first tier, where would you say there's a drop off? Because I'll tell you, I'm looking at it. I'm thinking. What'd you say, Ryan?
9.
I would go.
So are you including Ryan Walters in that first?
I'm including Ryan Walters. Yes.
I'm
not sure I can do that with a guy who's never been a head coach before. I would say
I'm at 7 or 8.
7. Yeah, I would say Tom Herman at 7 is a really good for FAU, and everyone above that I like. Jeremy Chadwell, Liberty, Hugh Freeze, Auburn, on down the list. So yeah, I would say after Tom Herman, when you get to Satterfield at Cincy, that's, to me, seems like maybe a little bit of a drop off. But
that's fair. No,
I know you're a big Ryan Walters guy.
I do.
Maybe that's what it is.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Do you want to talk more about the first names of head coaches like we did in our last episode?
How many other Ryans are there? I wonder. You got Ryan Day. You got Ryan Walters.
Oh boy, here we go again.
Ryan.
Yeah, here it is.
Is there another Ryan?
Ryan.
No.
Don't know him.
No, Ryan.
Wait, Ryan Silverfield? Is that the Memphis coach's name? Or am I getting his first name wrong? My brain.
Wow.
Yeah.
I know Silverfield now.
I think it's Ryan Silverfield. Sounds right coming out.
Well, it's
We're in off-season.
that wouldn't have been
right
my
now.
guess, but now that you said it, I'm
it's
like,
Ryan.
now I
It's
have-
Ryan.
Okay, there's another Ryan.
There you go. Yeah, Ryan. There you go. I think we should end there. Just call it. We can.
Let's call it a win. If there's
Yeah.
another Ryan, let us know in the
Yeah.
comments. Last time we forgot a Brent. We've got the Brent Brennan, who I gave him his due on this episode. But that'll do it for this episode of the College Football Bros. Thank you for watching. Subscribe to our YouTube channel. We'd really appreciate that. Give the video a thumbs up, and we will talk to you next week or next. Could be in a couple days. I forgot. We're a YouTube channel now.
There you go. Yeah.
See you soon.